of our tech department, Mr. Joseph Powell, who has offered to be here and to share some things about phishing. Okay, Joseph.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Joseph Powell. I'm in charge of information and security here, and today we're going to talk about phishing, not the good kind. So, today we're going to talk about how we've had an increase in phishing, and it's not just in work, it's at home too. We're going to talk about ways to identify suspicious emails and what to do if you've received a phishing email. Alright, so what is phishing? Phishing refers to when an attacker sends a fake email message to get people to share their personal information, passwords, or financial information. The attacker will pretend to be a trusted entity, like someone you work with or someone you have business with. They manipulate a victim by opening an email, an instant message, or text message. It doesn't just have to be emails. And then the user is then tricked into clicking on a link or opening an attachment or calling a number. And it can have devastating results. Like for an individual at home, it could be unauthorized purchases. They get your Amazon account. They could steal your funds, get your bank account. They could steal your identity. Scary stuff. And it's often used in the corporate world as a foothold to get into a network, like compromise your credentials and attack the school itself. Here's an example of one. Kind of hard to see, but it's from like my university. It says, "Dear network user, this email is meant to inform you that your My University network password will expire in 24 hours. Please follow the link below to update your password." And it looks legit. It looks like everything you'd want to see. But several things can occur if you don't check everything out with it. If you click that link, you can be redirected to a bogus site that looks exactly like the site where you would renew your page, but the hacker's acting like a man in the middle, and they would get your information, and then they would send it forward to where you do get to the website where you want it to get, but they'll have your password, so you're already been compromised. Or it could actually send you to the actual site, but it could also have a malicious script in the link, so when you click it, it'll hijack your system, and they have access to the network from there.
Here, we would never send you an email to change your password. It would always be done, you have to go to the computer, sit down to go to log in, hey, your password is old, you gotta change it.
So like with phishing email scams, it's a numbers game. So they don't have to just specifically target you. They'll send out thousands of fake messages to profit off the very few that click, and they'll make a lot of money doing so. And there's several different techniques that they'll use to increase their success rates. They'll go to great lengths to design emails that mimic actual emails. So like you'll get like Facebook phishing emails that look like they come from Facebook, but it is not. Or they'll also use like the same phrasing, typefaces, logos, signatures. Like I have an example in here in a little bit from Geek Squad that looks like Geek Squad, but there are a few ways to tell that it's not. They'll also use urgency. So they'll try to like push you like, oh, you could win the lottery today if you click this button in like 30 seconds. Or like, you're overdue for this invoice for canceling your account in like 30 minutes. So it'll be like false urgency. Or like with that email, your account expires in 24 hours. So they want you to act. And they'll apply pressure to make you less diligent, more prone to not thinking it through. And links to side messages will often resemble their like counterparts, like where you want to go, but they typically are misspelled slightly. So like for instance, it looks almost exactly the same, except this is the legitimate link. It has like this / that tells you where you go. Here, there is no /, they just put it down. And that makes all the difference. Because wherever you click before the / like this is where you would actually go, is right before the /. If there's not one, you look for the next .com, if that makes any sense to anybody. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, good. So you always have to look for the closest like .com or .edu to your right before that /. Alright, and now we're going to talk about spear phishing. This is when they target a specific person or group as opposed to random application users. So if they're targeting the school, odds are they're going to be more in depth. Like it'll look like it's from ITI. That they'll use the same logo. They'll try to figure out how we communicate. So like for instance, like say someone was trying to get the names, like get into an organization. They would research the names of employees in the marketing department, and then they would find access to like their invoices. Then once they had enough information, they'd pretend to be the marketing director, and they would send emails to like a department manager using subject lines that that other person would use. And they will send like updated invoice, but it's not the real thing. And so it'll be like a replica of what you would expect. Then there'll be a link in the email that had like a password protected internal document for an invoice. And it would look legitimate and say that manager actually like clicked on it. He'd be requested to log in with his credentials. If he did log in with his credentials, then the attacker now has them and can have full access to that department and continue going. So, and it would be like a first stage to like what a hacker group would do. Because a lot of times they don't act immediately. It'll be like a slow burn process where they'll spend like 8 months sitting in your organization seeing how like this person sends emails. And then they'll send emails out themselves pretending to be that person. So how do you prevent it? Vigilance is key. So a spoofed message often contains very subtle mistakes that expose its true identity, and we always want to check for red flags. So our red flags would be like from, like who the email is from, to where's the email going to, is it going to multiple people, any links that you have in the email, the date, like the time it was sent, the subject, what the message is, any attachments in the email, and the content, like what the email is saying, and is it relevant to like me. So when you're looking at from, who the email is from, things I would look for are like, I don't recognize the sender's email address as someone I normally talk to. Is it someone that you've never had any kind of correspondence with? Or like, is it someone outside my organization and it's not related to my job duties? Or is it someone I know that's extremely out of character, like never talks to me like this, asking for weird things? Or is it from like a very suspicious domain? Like this one, it says like, it looks like it's MicrosoftSupport.com, but Microsoft's misspelled. So at a glance, you wouldn't notice. Or you don't have any kind of relationship with that person. So we're gonna go into an example of that. So in this example, this is actually one we've gotten recently. And it's a Geek Squad thing. And if you look at the very top corner, it's hard to see, but it says from Jennifer Wilson, but the actual email address is like csdsddw@gmail.com. Definitely not from Geek Squad. Because if you're getting an email from a business, they wouldn't use a Gmail account. They'd probably use like geeksquad.com. You always want to look, if you're getting something from business, for a professional email. And if they're not sending you a professional email and you know the person, I would reach out and call them. Or email them yourself and be like, hey, did you send me this? Is this legitimate? Because it always helps to go through any avenue that you can talk to the person if you know them. If you don't know them, I wouldn't trust it. Also, we always here at ITI, if you get an email that's not from ITI, we have a warning banner. So if it says it's from ITI and you get that, it's not. All right, and let's see, the red flags to look for. So if you were CC'd on an email sent to more than one person, but you don't personally know any of the other people involved, I would be kind of alarmed. Because sometimes you get those text messages from like hundreds of phone numbers all in a row. I wouldn't trust that. And same with emails. We had a pet sitting email last year where it was sent to like everybody on the staff. Any email like that, I would not trust. Because it's someone just going, all staff, let's see who clicks this. And if you have questions about it, you can email that person directly and go like, hey, is this legitimate? So, or like, yeah, an unusual mix of people, like the phone numbers, for instance. Like anything that's like, I got all these emails and all these numbers, or all these names are like in alphabetical order, like going down to P's. That's suspicious, because they're just going down a list. All right, and links. So anytime you have a link, one way you can check is you can hover over the link. Don't click it, but if you hover over it in the bottom corner of the screen, it'll tell you where it really goes. And so if you hover over a link and it shows like a different website than what the link looks like, that's a huge red flag. Like say it's like, oh, this goes to like Facebook, and you hover over it and it says like info.esecurity.fax. I wouldn't click on it because it's going somewhere completely different. Or like you receive an email that has like long hyperlinks that have no further information. It's just like, hey, important, click, and then link. I wouldn't click on that. That's a red flag for sure. Or you receive an email with a hyperlink that's slightly misspelled. Like in this example, from the back, it probably looks like Bank of America, but that's an R and an N. So it's like Bank of R in America. Glancing at it really quick, the M really looks like it's there, and I'll take you completely different. And that's very common, that bigger. All right, dating. So another one is, say you're corresponding with someone that you normally do, and they always send you emails at a certain time, and then you randomly get one from 3 a.m. I would question that. Like anything that's sent like an unusual time, because that could be coming from overseas. That could be someone spoofing, because it's not the hardest thing in the world to spoof an email to make it look like it's coming from someone else. When we do our phishing emails to y'all, that's what we do. That's why it looks like it's coming from ITI, but it doesn't. So you always want to be vigilant about the date and time as well. Subject, like if you get an email with a subject line that's irrelevant or does not match the message, it just seems suspicious. Like the pet sitting position, like that's not something you would expect to see, let alone from a student and all the staff. I would question that. Or is the email message a reply that to something I never sent? That's another thing they'll do. You'll get an email that's like re.invoice information to make it look like you actually talked to this person, but you never did. They just put a re into something. So people are very awful. You just have to be very careful in how you look at these things. And attachments. So a sender included like an email attachment that I was not expecting or that makes no sense in relation to the email message. Or like the sender usually doesn't send you an attachment. Or like you see an attachment that's potentially dangerous. The only safe file type that I know of are like .text files. PDFs, there's really no way you can check that to know if it's safe or not. So when it comes to an attachment, I wouldn't click it unless everything else made sense. Like you know the person, the message looks legit, and any of the other flags we've talked about so far, I would be very careful. Because if you can click that, you can open like a script to where they have access to your computer very easily. They can make any kind of file look like a different type. And then content. So is the sender asking me to click on a link or open an attachment to avoid like a negative consequence or gain something of value? Like, oh, you're on a time limit to click this, or you can win something if you click this. Is the email out of the ordinary? Does it have bad grammar and misspellings? That's a very common one. You'll see like bad English every now and then, because a lot of them come from overseas. Or is it asking me to click a link or open an attachment that seems odd, like super, like why would I do this? Or if you have an uncomfortable gut feeling, I wouldn't click it. Like you gotta be kind of really suspicious these days of just emails in general. So in this email, this is the phishing email we did. We have a warning banner that we talked about earlier, and here there's like slight misspellings. So it's like, hello all, found some old photos of Mr. Barton from the 70s. Definitely worth a look, but it's like, like I said, your butt. Keep it on the low with the emoji face. And then click here for goods. So I feel like Miss Jill would talk a little better English than that, slightly.
Maybe.
And also, her name is misspelled right here. So instead of Jill, it's JLLL. And then her website, like her email address is like jyoung with a 0 at ITI College.edu. So it's very sneaky. And they're very, very subtle details, and also the warning banner saying it wasn't even from ITI. But like if it's like 7 in the morning when we sent it, you're driving, you're just like, oh, cool. It can get you. You just have to always kind of be slightly paranoid. So urgency is like the very big thing with content. Like anything time sensitive or requests are another reliable tool for someone to try to attack you. You may be motivated to compromise yourself under the guise of a serious problem, or you may be tempted by photos of someone you know. Those are all legitimate things to where like you might lose a prize or reward if you do not click quickly. So what to do if you've gotten a phishing email? So on Outlook 365, there's an icon right up there. If you click on that, when you have like the email selected, like if you're just like have it over it, you have the option to report it as phishing. And when you do, we get a notification about it. It also goes to Microsoft so they're aware of potential phishing scams that are like that, and then we can act on it. I wouldn't open it further. I don't think Ms. Jill wants us to get emails directly, but if y'all could report it, and if y'all have any questions on how to report it, I could walk you through it, and all that good stuff. It's just really important that we know and that you don't just ignore it. Because if y'all don't tell us, then we don't know. And then we could potentially have an issue. Because what we do, when we get a phishing email, we go through your mailboxes with PowerShell, we write a script, and we wipe them all out to where no one can click on it. And so the sooner that y'all report it, the sooner we can act and keep people from clicking something. Anybody have questions?
Great job, Joseph. Thank you.